The surprise resignation of Justice Anthony Kennedy follows two major U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Big news for conservatives and wins for them. Our burning question: what is the future of the Supreme Court and the impact on everything from abortion to affirmative action to gay rights to redistricting right here in Illinois? Joining us from the northwest suburbs, East Dundee, Republican Representative Alan Skillicorn, and Chicago Democrat Christian Mitchell from the south side of the city. So a big victory for your side, Representative Skillicorn, in the Janus ruling, cutting the power of government unions here in Illinois.
Yes, it is. The Supreme Court ruled that worker freedom is now a thing and that public sector workers, their rights have been violated for the past 40 years. So it has been ruled unconstitutional for forced unionization. Simply put, this is a big win for worker choice and individual freedom.
Representative Mitchell, President Trump tweeted out immediately after that ruling that it's a big loss for the coffers of the Democrats, that the unions are going to have tens of millions of dollars less to give to your party.
Well, so Donald Trump kind of gave away the game, right? Gave it away for his partner here in Illinois, Bruce Rauner, and for the Illinois Policy Institute and all those who think this is a good idea. This was not about worker freedom. This was ultimately about reducing the power of the Democratic Party and also making sure that unions were weaker. And the impact, by the way,
but that's the impact.
That is the impact. That is absolutely the impact. And it's going to be worse for the economics of middle-class families and especially people of color. Public sector unions nationwide, 18% of them are African-American women. The middle class in places like Chatham and other places around the city of Chicago, the first middle class communities in the country, were built by teachers, firefighters, cops, sanitation workers. And so undermining the power of those unions to fight for wages, for benefits, for the kind of protections that we all think are good is a victory for right-wing billionaires and a victory for those who want to destroy unions to advance their political agenda, but very bad for ordinary people. So this is a terrible day.
Representative Skillicorn, that sounds like it was bad.
Was Greg Janus a billionaire? Am I a billionaire? Are the taxpayers of Illinois billionaires? No, that's not the case. This is a real issue for worker freedom. This is individual freedom. And now you've got plenty of public workers that now are going to get to keep their dues, and they're going to go spend the money how they want to do it. And then also absolutely opportunity for the actually public sector worker to earn the support.
But note that he didn't say what they're free from, because right now the fair share fees were never able to be used for political contributions. This is about making sure that the union can finance itself. It's about a free rider problem whereby we know that unions raise the wages of everyone in the workplace. And by the way, not just in the workplace, but all workers in the state, in the city, in the country.
Representative Skillicorn, the retiring of Anthony Kennedy at this point, good news, bad news?
I think it's good news for the nation, but he had definitely served. He was a centrist. I think that he was, all those 5-4 votes were him. He was always the deciding vote in every single 5-4.
So do you see, you know, there are people on both sides. The president says he's going to appoint somebody who's going to overturn Roe versus Wade, and abortion will be illegal in many states, maybe in 18 months, 24 months.
No, I disagree with Roe v. Wade, but I don't think the president's correct in how it's going to happen. So the court just can't bring in Roe v. Wade and redecide it. There has to be another court case. There has to be another situation. So what you'll see is maybe a state law that's challenged somewhere, or might you see one state that might actually restrict
but you think eventually
that's how it's going to happen.
Abortion will be less available, and in some places won't be available at all.
I can't predict what happens down the road, but there has to be changes in the states. And maybe this issue should be left to the states anyways.
Representative?
I think that we should make sure that people across the country can access the rights and freedoms that all of the people can access regardless of income. Because truthfully, the issue here isn't whether or not abortions will continue. It'll be whether or not ordinary folks can afford to make choices about their reproductive health care. We're fortunate to have passed House Bill 40 here, which says that if Roe v. Wade rolls back, we won't necessarily be going back to the Stone Age of sort of back alley abortions. But there's more to Kennedy, right? Because it's not just about abortion. It's about voting rights, affirmative action. We are going to see the face of the Supreme Court change for a generation in ways that means that states will have to take a more active role because the court is no longer going to backstop the constitutional freedoms we all count on.
All right, so what's going to happen? What's the political impact of this fall? Do you...
I think it'll motivate turnout. I think it'll motivate turnout on probably both sides of the equation. I think that you've seen Democratic turnout already spiking. I think you'll see it happen more because people should start to realize this is going to be an existential crisis of our lifetime. We could see all the freedoms we hold for granted under attack. We've already seen the court be activist this week on things like voting rights, and that's with Kennedy on the court. So we have to make sure that we're stepping up in state legislatures, in Congress, around the country to make sure we're protecting voting rights, the rights of women to make their own reproductive health care decisions, and the rights to make sure that we can have more access and opportunity for people of color in higher education.
Representative Skillicorn?
I don't see a huge change. So turnout doesn't get any higher than a presidential year. So 2 years ago, we had a presidential election. Obviously, the Republicans won in enough states to keep take the White House. You're going to see something similar. So I don't see a blue wave. I see status quo in that. And I think that Republicans will hold the House. They were never going to lose the Senate, and that's what's probably going to happen. And this probably does help Republicans more than it helps Democrats, because Democrats are already charged up. Now you see Republicans in many of these states that care about human rights. I mean, unborn children are human beings. They have rights too. You're going to see a big turnout for that segment.
All right, when we come back, we're going to take a quick break. More from our panel and this burning question involving the changes wrought by the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll be right back. We're back with two state reps, Chicago Democrat Christian Mitchell and East Dundee, Northwest Suburban Republican Alan Skillicorn. Alan, it looks like the Supreme Court now, without Anthony Kennedy there, is not going to tackle this partisan gerrymandering stuff, these fair maps that you Illinois Republicans have been complaining about for years.
Yeah, these gerrymandered maps are horrible. I think we might see a surprise, because some of the maps are based on, I mean, obviously the Constitution gives the state the authority to pass these maps. Right now Republicans are minorities, so they don't have a seat at the table. We might see some changes because the Voting Rights Act could be in play, but I don't know, because it was punted by the Supreme Court with a new justice. Unless we see someone with some radical ideas, I don't see significant changes there. And reality is Republicans need to win more seats so they get a seat at the table.
So, Christian Mitchell, are the Republicans in Illinois right that you Democrats have done them dirty with this map?
No,
it's a rigged map.
Look, I think that the thing that I'm most concerned about, and actually Representative Skillicorn alluded to it, has been the erosion of the Voting Rights Act. And my concern with redistricting reform is always going to be, how do you make sure it fulfills not just the letter, but the spirit of the Voting Rights Act, not as currently constituted and weakened by the Supreme Court, but as it was originally passed, to make sure that minorities can create districts and vote for representatives that are of their choice. And so, insofar as there's redistricting reform that does that, I'm game. But insofar as we've got a court that isn't willing to take it up, number one, and Republican state legislatures around the country that are trying to cut down on same-day voter registration and early voting, I'm going to be on guard for making sure that any sort of quote-unquote voting reform is not actually about taking more power away from people to choose the representatives of their choice.
Representative Skillicorn, Chuy Garcia was here a few weeks ago, running for Congress to take the old Gutierrez seat.
And I'm familiar with his district map.
And he complains that the Trump administration is thinking about asking on the census whether you're a citizen. And he says that question is going to cause a lot of Hispanics not to participate in the census. Is that a good question or a bad question?
Well, it wasn't that long ago that was part of the census. You know, it's only
Until
been changed
1950.
once. Yeah, but it was even more recent than that. It was part of the extended form of the census. It hasn't changed that long ago. And since we're trying to get demographic information, I mean, why ask for income if we don't ask a question like that? Why are we going to ask for all this other demographic information and not something important like that?
Because income isn't a proxy for race the way immigration status is. And when you've got a president who's openly racist, I think it's a pretty bad time to be asking a question when you've got ICE being as overreactive as they are, when you've got all these issues at the border, when you've got an administration that's made it very clear that they really don't give much of a crap about people of color, and when you're deliberately trying to drive down participation in the census to take away federal resources and representation. Yeah, I would say we want to leave that question.
So there's no Eastern Europeans or Asians that have overstayed visas?
Oh, I'm sure there are.
To equate that it's race-related, I don't know. I think that's
so let me double back, because I'm sure there are folks at home, Representative Mitchell, that are going, wait a minute, he just called the president an open racist? What do you mean?
I mean that the president, in his rhetoric, in his policies, in everything he's done with his administration, with the composition of his cabinet, with the composition of his White House intern pool, you walk down the list, and if it looks like a duck and smells like a duck, it's a duck.
Representative Skillicorn?
You know, I think equal opportunity for all, and with rising tide, all boats rise. I see policies that are working. It may not be happening here in Illinois, but that's because we are the epicenter of bad policies. Nationwide, though, you see the Fed saying that economic growth is off the charts right now. You see the tax cuts are working. You see that renters now have a doubled standard deduction. That's real money in real people's pockets.
It's fact check time. So GDP growth is actually at 1.9% when it was predicted to be at, I think, 3 or 4% by Trump after the tax cuts. Our debt is up. We're going to borrow $1 trillion new dollars next year, so we're raising the national debt.
1.9 was a long-term forecast, right?
That's correct.
I think it may be over 3 for this quarter.
So,
but for the quarter, but what Trump said was it's going to be 3 to 4 long-term growth, so it's less than half that. The debt has gone up. Job opportunities have gone down, especially for those who most need them. So the bottom line is the president's policies are not working. That's why Harley-Davidson is getting ready to move production overseas, and that was one of the companies he said was going to do the job. So the president's record is dismal, and his record for people of color is even worse.
Representative, 15 seconds here. Wrap it up.
Well, I think we are seeing a situation where it's working. People are keeping more money. That helps families stay here in Illinois. That helps families get ahead. I think that's a big deal.
Representative Ellen Skillicorn from East Dundee, Chicago Democrat Christian Mitchell, thank you both very much. Sure. I appreciate it. We got to have you guys back. You know how to mix it up. Up next, when we come back, my hot take. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker is certainly entitled to brag about his state's unemployment rate. 2.8% last month, a half point lower than the Chicago area's also healthy, 3.3%. But some other numbers caught my attention this week, specifically the breathtaking cost to taxpayers of that new Foxconn plant just over the state line in Racine County. State and local taxpayers are now on the hook for nearly $5 billion. That's at least $370,000 a job, and some experts believe the eventual per job cost could go much, much higher. Now, there are some hard lessons in this for Chicagoans still pursuing the long-shot dream of persuading tech giant Amazon to put its HQ2 here. Here's a statistic that all the politicos will understand. A lot of Wisconsin voters are unhappy with that Foxconn deal. A Marquette University Law School poll found those who believe that the high-tech factory is soaking taxpayers for more than it's worth outnumber those who think it will pay for itself. The state, by the way, estimates that it won't break even until the year 2043. Amazon's HQ2 could be a game changer wherever it goes, promising 50,000 jobs and positive worldwide attention. But only if the ultimate deal makes economic sense in and of itself. Any Illinois official tempted to write a blank check to Amazon should be forced to wear a cheese head. I'm political editor Mike Flannery. Thanks for watching. See you next week.